Beneath the quiet pulse of the earth, where stone remembers what flesh has long forgotten, there lies a record older than humanity itself. A silence buried beneath eons of pressure, unbroken, unspoken, whispering only to those who dare to listen. From the depths of forgotten valleys to the frozen marrow of the Himalayas, clues surface like fragile bones through thawing permafrost. Skulls that do not fit the pattern, footprints too vast, too deliberate to be coincidence. Fragments of stories found in the shadows of myths, from the Nephilim of ancient scripture to the long-limbed builders of Baalbek's monoliths. For centuries, science has dismissed them as allegory, exaggerations born of ignorance or awe. Yet with every decade, new discoveries rise like ghosts from the soil, elongated femurs unearthed in Nevada caves, fossilized impressions in South Africa's rock beds, genetic anomalies within the human genome that defy clear lineage. Each trace speaks of something before us, something more immense, not merely in size, but in presence. If the human story begins in the cradle of Africa, then whose bones lie beyond the map of our own memory? Were they travelers of the first dawn, or remnants of a forgotten experiment, a species lost between heaven and earth? The question lingers like dust suspended in the beam of an ancient sun. Welcome to Deformed History. If you're drawn to stories like these, the ones that live in the shadows between what we see and what was made to disappear, feel free to like and subscribe only if it feels right, and let me know in the comments where are you watching from, and what time is it for you right now. I love seeing our little map of watchers light up around the world. The desert wind carried a warmth that seemed older than the world itself. Beneath its breath, dunes shifted and resettled, as though they were exhaling memories long buried under time. On the edge of what is now Nevada, a cavern opened like a wound in the stone, Lovelock Cave. To most, it was just another hollow in the high desert, a place where bats slept and silence gathered. But for those who listened carefully, the cave spoke in a language of dust and bone. In 1911, 2 guano miners stumbled into its darkness, their lamps trembling against the ancient walls. What they found inside would unravel certainties one layer at a time. Behind the crust of centuries, they uncovered woven sandals longer than any man's stride, duck decoys made with meticulous care, and, deeper still, skeletal remains that dwarfed the frame of modern humans. 12 feet, some said. 10, others corrected. But always too tall, too deliberate to be myth alone. The Paiute people had spoken of them for generations. The Sai Tekka, red-haired giants who lived before the tribes, cannibalistic and fierce, driven into the caves by fire and vengeance when the earth was young. The archaeologists who followed after tried to calm the storm of rumors. They measured bones, catalogued artifacts, traced the fiber of ancient baskets. The official reports spoke of an early human culture, clever and industrious, but undeniably human. Yet certain bones were quietly removed. Some say shipped to distant museums, others to private collections where they disappeared. The measurements were altered, the photographs misplaced, and in the margins of the written record, something slipped between myth and science, vanishing into a silence more profound than denial. Outside the cave, the desert stretched infinite and indifferent. But if one knelt beside the mouth of the cavern, one might feel it, the sense that the ground itself was remembering. Stone has no eyes, yet it keeps witness. The layered sediments of Lovelock hold pollen, ash, and echoes of human breath from thousands of years, and beneath them, perhaps, the remnants of something that came before breath itself. Something colossal in both scale and meaning. Every ancient culture has its whispers of the tall ones. In the Bible, they are the Nephilim, those who fell, the sons of gods who mingled with mortals. In the myths of the Norse, they are the Jötnar, beings of frost and fire who built the bones of the earth. The Greeks called them the Titans, the builders before time, punished for their pride. Across the Pacific, in the high plateaus of Peru, carved stones weigh hundreds of tons, fit so precisely that not even a blade of grass can slip between them. Each story, distant yet familiar, hums with the same vibration, that once the world was inhabited by something larger, both in stature and in spirit. Science, cautious and sharp, draws a line between evidence and imagination. Yet the line is often drawn in sand. As new technologies reach deeper into our genetic code, strange signals emerge, fragments that do not trace neatly to Homo sapiens, nor to Neanderthals, nor to Denisovans. Ghost lineages, they call them, ancestors without names. Perhaps these are not proof of giants, but proof of something equally unsettling, that our family tree is not a tree at all, but a tangled forest where forgotten branches still breathe. When night falls over the Nevada desert, the stars reflect in the salt flats like scattered bones. It is easy, under that vast silence, to feel the thinness of the present. The cave becomes a mouth, and the wind a whisper. We were here before you, and we will be here after you. Archaeologists return year after year, finding fragments, a jaw too heavy, a femur too thick. Each piece catalogued, measured, then quietly folded back into the narrative of human evolution, because to admit another species, another intelligence, older and greater, would demand rewriting the beginning itself. The Paiute legends say that when the Site-Ka were trapped in the cave, the tribes set fire at both ends, sealing the giants inside with smoke and flame. Even now, black streaks on the limestone walls speak of a fire so fierce it altered the minerals. Charcoal from that burn still rests beneath layers of guano and clay. It could be dated, measured, placed neatly in time. But the myth lingers stronger than the numbers. Who were they, really? Savages of flesh and hunger, or something far more ancient, watching the rise of humanity like a parent watching a restless child? Some explorers who entered Lovelock in the early 20th century wrote of skulls with elongated crania, of hair that shone auburn under the lantern light. Others later dismissed those descriptions as errors of preservation, hair bleached red by mineral salts, skulls deformed by tribal binding. Yet between the lines, uncertainty remains. The human mind, after all, reshapes evidence to fit its comfort. It files the strange under error, the impossible under myth. But what if myth is memory, distorted, refracted through centuries of fear and forgetfulness? Far to the north, in the caves of the Caucasus, archaeologists uncovered footprints pressed into ancient clay, massive, proportioned like ours, but many times larger. In South America, along the Paracas coast, skulls with cranial volumes far exceeding normal capacity lie in museum drawers, tagged and mostly ignored. In Patagonia, explorers of the 16th century wrote of meeting tribes so tall they seemed to stride above the pampas. Each account alone might be fantasy. Together they form a pattern that hums beneath recorded history like an undertone, faint, steady, persistent. Perhaps it is not the giants that disturb us, but the implication that humanity is not unique, not first, not alone. To accept that possibility would mean accepting that civilization is not a straight ascent, but a cycle, spiraling through creation and erasure. Maybe those who came before built their own monuments, not of stone, but of silence, knowing that the next world would misinterpret the remains. In the quiet of night, Lovelock Cave holds its breath. The archaeologist's footsteps have faded. The miners' shovels rust in forgotten museums. Bats hang motionless in the rafters, their wings like folded pages of an unread book. Dust settles on everything, even on truth. Yet sometimes, when lightning rips across the desert, the brief white light reveals the outline of something immense carved into the rock, an impression not made by tools, but by presence. It vanishes as quickly as it appears, leaving behind only the echo of wonder. If the bones found in Lovelock were truly human, then they are merely relics of an ancient tribe. But if they were not, if they belonged to something that predated the stories we tell about ourselves, then perhaps the cave is more than a tomb. Perhaps it is a memory vault, a remnant of a species that understood time differently. Their silence may not be extinction, but restraint, waiting for the right century, the right question. The desert night grows colder. The wind moves through sagebrush like breath through sleep. Somewhere deep in the cave, a pebble falls, echoing once, twice, then disappears into darkness. The earth closes over the sound, as it always has. The story withdraws, half-told, patient. And above it all, the stars shimmer, as if remembering. The question remains, who measured the first horizon before humans opened their eyes? And what hands built the foundations upon which we now stand, believing ourselves to be the first? In the years that followed the discovery at Lovelock, the desert's silence deepened, as though it had swallowed its own secret. The bones vanished into museum vaults and university drawers, where they were labeled, reclassified, or quietly misplaced. But the legend refused to die. It began to ripple outward, across oceans and continents, pulling threads from every culture that had ever spoken of beings too vast to be human. The archaeologists could not control what was already older than their science, a memory that belonged not to any tribe, but to the earth itself. In ancient Sumer, the first written language carved in clay spoke of the Anunnaki, beings who came from the heavens, who shaped man from the dust and watched him like a failed experiment. They were described as towering, radiant, their blood a mixture of fire and metal. Thousands of years later, the book of Genesis would echo the same rhythm. There were giants in the earth in those days. The pattern repeated in whispers and fragments, in the Vedas, where Devas and Asuras waged wars in the skies, in the Hopi stories of the cloud people, in Norse songs of the gods descending to walk among mortals. The further one looked, the more the edges of myth and archaeology blurred, like twilight dissolving into night. In the late 20th century, researchers began noticing something curious in the geological strata beneath old burial sites. There were disturbances, thick layers of silt compressed between sedimentary lines that did not belong to the expected timeline. Microscopic carbon residues, traces of heat and ash, suggested fires vast enough to burn continents. These signs appeared at the end of the last ice age, roughly 12,800 years ago, a time of cataclysm known today as the Younger Dryas. Scientists proposed a comet impact or a massive solar event. But to those who listened deeper, It sounded like something else, an erasure, a deliberate reset. What if those ancient giants, those pre-human architects, were caught in that cataclysm? What if their civilization, immense and slow like glaciers, had been swept away in a single turning of the sky? The ruins scattered across the world, the megaliths of Baalbek, the submerged terraces off Yonaguni, the Cyclopean walls of Sacsayhuaman, seemed like the bones of a forgotten order. Even today, no modern machinery has explained how those stones were lifted, carved, or set with such precision. Some weighed hundreds of tons, yet were balanced so finely that a coin could rest in the seams between them. The world had inherited the architecture of gods, but lost the instructions. And so the narrative of the giants began to re-emerge, not as myth, but as question. Who taught the first humans to build with such celestial accuracy? Who mapped the stars in alignment with the Earth's poles before the invention of the compass? The ancients said the Watchers did, beings who fell from the firmament, bringing both knowledge and ruin. Their descent was recorded in clay and stone, not as parable, but as memory encoded in mythic language. Perhaps myth is the soul's way of remembering what history has chosen to forget. In the Peruvian highlands, locals tell of Viracocha, the bearded god who rose from the waters after a great flood and taught the survivors how to rebuild. He was tall, pale-skinned, cloaked in light. He walked with staff and flame. When his work was done, he promised to return and disappeared across the Pacific. The Inca called him the maker of all things. To the east, across the ocean, the Sumerians told the same story in a different tongue. Their gods, too, came from the sea, bringing the measure of heaven to the land. The names changed, but the shapes remained the same. Giants, teachers, fallen stars, all bound by the same undertone, remembrance of an age when humanity was the child of something greater. Modern anthropology calls such parallels cultural diffusion, the natural spread of stories among early societies. But the geometry of the similarities defies coincidence. How could cultures divided by oceans, epochs, and isolation conceive of the same archetype? Tall, luminous beings, great floods, forbidden unions between gods and mortals? It is as if the collective memory of humanity is a broken mirror, each shard reflecting the same ancient image from a different angle. Some scholars once suggested an antediluvian civilization, one that existed before the sea swallowed its own coasts. If that were true, its traces would not lie in texts or artifacts, but in the bones of the earth, and perhaps within the bones of us. Geneticists have found within modern human DNA fragments of unknown origin, segments that do not match Neanderthal or Denisovan ancestry, nor any living primate. These ghost lineages are silent, non-coding, as though written by a vanished hand. Some theorists whisper that these may be remnants of an older experiment, an intelligence that shaped us, then disappeared into the fog of its own extinction. Others see only random mutation. Yet when one compares the mythic record to the biological one, the symmetry is haunting. The ancients spoke of sons of the gods, hybrids between mortal and divine. Modern science speaks of admixture, introgression, and genetic anomalies. Two languages describing the same mystery, separated by millennia but bound by curiosity. It is tempting to dismiss such notions as imagination, but imagination often precedes discovery. Before the bones were found, giants existed only in legend. Before tectonic theory, the continents were fixed in thought. The more science expands, the more it circles back toward myth, finding echoes where once it drew boundaries. In 2013, beneath the Denison Plateau in eastern Siberia, researchers uncovered a fragment of a human femur more than twice the thickness of an average adult's. Its dating placed it at over 40,000 years old. It was classified as an anomaly, stored and forgotten. But in the quiet corridors of old archives, such anomalies begin to accumulate, forming constellations in the darkness. One by one, the pieces emerge. A skull in the Philippines with proportions too large for its era. Fossilized footprints in South Africa nearly half a meter long. Legends of builders who lifted stones as if they were weightless. Each isolated, they mean little. Together they whisper a continuity that no single culture could sustain. If the Lovelock Cave giants were but one echo, then the chorus stretches across continents and ages. The earth remembers through repetition. Yet for every whisper of belief, there is a chorus of denial. Science demands replication, not resonance. There are no official records of 12-foot skeletons in any verified archive. Museums insist no such remains exist. Reports from the early 1900s were embellished, they say, the result of poor measurement, exaggeration, or myth-making by miners seeking attention. But truth often hides behind such denials, not out of deceit, but out of discomfort. What happens to our self-image when we are no longer the pinnacle of creation, but one layer in a lineage of forgotten titans? In the slow hours of night, one can imagine the world before the deluge, before languages splintered, before maps hardened into shape. Forests stretching unbroken from pole to pole, rivers wide as seas, mountains glowing with the red breath of creation. In that primeval dusk, perhaps there walked beings whose steps carved valleys, whose breath stirred the clouds. They were not gods as we imagine gods, but guardians of a cycle, the keepers of knowledge that could not survive the fires to come. When the cataclysm arrived, they vanished, leaving only monuments that defied erosion. We found their shadows carved in stone and called them myth. There is a kind of sorrow in that idea, that greatness once walked beside us and we forgot. Yet there is also comfort. If such beings existed, they were not extinguished. They simply changed form, becoming the myths that still guide us, the blueprints of awe that keep us searching. Every temple, every stone circle, every pyramid is an echo of that memory, the human attempt to reach back into the hands that built the first horizon. Some say the giants never perished, that they retreated beneath the surface, into hollow chambers beneath mountain ranges, into cities of crystal and basalt. In Tibetan lore, they are called the Shambhala, beings of immense wisdom dwelling beneath the Himalayas. The Cherokee tell of moon-eyed people who lived underground, their eyes too sensitive for daylight. And in certain apocryphal texts of the Middle East, there are references to the Watchers being bound beneath the earth until the end of ages. Could the legends of underworlds and hidden kingdoms be the last hints of a forgotten refuge? In 1987, sonar imaging in the Gulf of Kambat off India revealed the remains of what appeared to be a city buried beneath 40 meters of silt, roads, walls, geometric layouts. The dating placed it around 9,000 years old, older than any known civilization. Scientists debated, dismissed, redated, but even in dismissal, the evidence persisted. A city erased by a rising sea, much like the myths of floods that echo across continents. If such floods were real, and geological data says they were, then whole worlds would have drowned, taking with them the libraries, languages, and bloodlines of their giants. Perhaps that is the nature of time: to bury, then reveal, then bury again. Each discovery we make is not a revelation, but a resurfacing. The Earth's patience is endless. It waits for us to notice, and when we do, it offers fragments: a bone, a myth, a stone too heavy to lift, as if testing whether we are ready to remember. As dawn breaks over the desert, the colors bleed slowly from indigo to gold. The air is cool, thin, transparent. Somewhere in the shifting dunes, a single footprint emerges, fossilized in the limestone. It is enormous, yet perfectly human. The wind begins to erase it, grain by grain, but not before the light touches its edge, and for an instant it seems almost alive. There are questions that outlive civilizations. Who built the first monuments when the ice receded? Who measured the stars before humanity could count? Who or what came before the story we call our own? The answers wait in the places where silence gathers, in caves, beneath oceans, beneath our skin. The world hums with their memory, if one listens long enough. And perhaps, in some remote corner of the earth, the last of them still watches. Not as gods, not as ghosts, but as witnesses to the long forgetting. There is a kind of restlessness that dwells beneath the surface of the known world, as if the earth itself is uneasy with the version of history we have written upon it. The further scientists dig, the more that unease seems to speak. In the first decades of the 21st century, new technologies, ground-penetrating radar, satellite imaging, deep-core drilling, began to reveal what old myths had already whispered: that entire landscapes lie hidden beneath our feet, architectures of impossible scale buried by floods, earthquakes, or the quiet erosion of time. It is within these shadows of geography that the whispers of the pre-human giants return, not as relics or bones, but as patterns, traces of an intelligence that once shaped the contours of the earth itself. In Turkey's Anatolian plateau, the discovery of Göbekli Tepe in the 1990s forced the world to reconsider the origins of civilization. Rising from the dry soil were pillars carved 12,000 years ago. Massive monoliths arranged in circular enclosures, each weighing up to 16 tons, each decorated with animals, abstract symbols, and, hauntingly, humanoid figures with elongated arms and hands folded over their bellies. The site predates Stonehenge by 7,000 years and the pyramids by 8. According to traditional chronology, agriculture, language, and social order had barely formed at that time. Yet here was a temple complex so deliberate, so mathematically refined, that it implied a sophistication no hunter-gatherer society should have possessed. Archaeologists offered cautious theories. Perhaps it was a ritual gathering place, built by a cooperative of tribes. But some researchers saw more, an encoded message left by a vanished progenitor civilization. The site had been intentionally buried, as if to protect it from a coming storm. Beneath its stones, traces of ancient fire and vitrified soil hinted at intense heat, perhaps from an event powerful enough to reshape entire continents. To others, it felt like evidence of survival, a fragment of knowledge preserved by those who had witnessed the fall of something immense. Further east, in the Indonesian highlands, another mountain began to reveal its secret. Beneath layers of volcanic ash, archaeologists at Gunung Padang found terraces, chambers, and megalithic blocks arranged with a precision that suggested advanced geometry. Carbon dating placed its deepest structures at over 20,000 years old, long before the accepted dawn of civilization. If true, it would mean that the builders of Göbekli Tepe were not innovators, but inheritors, carrying fragments of a far older tradition. The stones of Gunung Padang hum faintly when struck, as though resonant with some forgotten frequency. Some physicists have suggested the design incorporates harmonic ratios linked to sound, implying that ancient builders understood acoustic levitation, an idea once considered myth. The same patterns appear at Sacsayhuaman, Baalbek, and Puma Punku, where blocks interlock like machine-cut pieces of a cosmic puzzle. If these were merely human hands at work, their ambition defied everything known about prehistory. And yet, across continents, the same symbols recur: the serpent, the bird, the outstretched hand. Could it be that these were not coincidences, but signatures, the echoes of a civilization that once spanned oceans now lost? The builders may not have been gods or giants in the literal sense, but something beyond human measure. Keepers of an intelligence intertwined with nature, able to move stone as one moves thought. The academic world recoils from such speculation. It prefers the comfort of gradual progress, the slow crawl from cave to city. But there are fractures in that narrative. In the caves of Lascaux, painted 30 millennia ago, the animals dance in precise motion, drawn with an anatomical mastery that rivals modern art. At the same time, strange humanoid figures appear, taller, thinner, crowned with antlers or halos of light. Were these the visions of early humans, or memories of beings they once encountered? The same motif appears in Australian Aboriginal rock art, where the Wandjina, large-headed, luminous figures, gaze down from the stone. Their eyes are almond-shaped, their forms towering and calm. The stories say they came from the clouds, teaching law, agriculture, and song before returning to the sky. The Aboriginal people are among the oldest continuous cultures on Earth. Perhaps they remember what the rest of us have forgotten. In Peru, at a site known as Caral, the oldest known city of the Americas rose nearly 5,000 years ago, built on terraces aligned perfectly with solstices and river flows. No fortifications, no weapons, no signs of conflict, only music, trade, and astronomy. The people of Caral spoke through wind instruments and light. Their architecture sang with the breeze. They claimed descent from the Tall Ones, who arrived after the waters withdrew. The same language echoes in Polynesian lore, where the first navigators spoke of ancestors who walked between islands when the sea was still land. And in the Mediterranean, legends of Atlantis tell of a radiant civilization swallowed by waves for its arrogance, a metaphor, perhaps, for the cyclical erasure that defines all human time. Some modern researchers studying geomagnetic anomalies and ancient climate data have proposed that the Earth undergoes periodic catastrophes, sudden reversals of polarity, impacts, or plasma discharges that reset the biosphere. Each event wipes the slate, erasing the traces of advanced culture while leaving myths as residue. In this view, the giants were not monsters of flesh, but embodiments of an older epoch, beings who mastered both the physical and the spiritual sciences, whose scale was as much metaphysical as corporeal. When their world collapsed, their memory persisted as symbol, seeded into our stories like DNA waiting to awaken. In 2015, during excavations near Lake Titicaca, Archaeologists discovered a series of submerged temples older than the Incan Empire, built from blocks cut with laser-like precision. The stones were engraved with patterns resembling constellations, not visible from the southern hemisphere today. When mapped, they aligned with star positions as they would have appeared more than 15,000 years ago. The same stellar alignments are found at Giza, at Angkor Wat, at Teotihuacan. Civilizations separated by oceans, millennia, and language somehow shared a single cosmic blueprint. Coincidence, perhaps, but the odds defy mathematics. The closer one looks, the more it seems that humanity inherited a broken architecture, a vast design too complex to have been born in isolation. Each culture carried a fragment of the whole, encoded in myth, stone, and ritual. The builders of Göbekli Tepe sculpted the memory of an older race. The priests of Sumer named them the Anunnaki. The Egyptians worshipped them as the Neteru, the Greeks, the Titans, the Norse, the Jötnar. Names changed, but the essence remained, beings immense in both body and wisdom, erased not by time, but by necessity. Perhaps they chose to vanish, leaving humanity to grow within the ruins. In one forgotten account from the archives of the Vatican Library, a 16th-century monk wrote of a discovery in the Pyrenees. A tomb carved into solid granite, containing a skeleton twice the height of a man, clutching a tablet inscribed with symbols resembling those at Göbekli Tepe. The record was never published, the tomb sealed, and the text buried beneath centuries of censorship. But whispers persist that the Church, too, guards the memory of the giants, locked away to preserve the fragile narrative of creation. For if the giants were real, if the gods were ancestors, then the hierarchy of divinity itself would fracture. At the heart of this enigma lies a philosophical unease. What does it mean to be human if we are the descendants of something larger, both literally and spiritually? If the bones of our creators lie beneath us, are we their continuation or their forgetting? Modernity urges us to believe in progress, in linear ascent. But the earth tells a different story, a spiral of birth, destruction, and remembrance. The ruins speak not of evolution, but of recurrence. Each age rises believing itself first, only to fall into dust and myth, leaving the next to wonder who came before. At night, when the wind moves through the standing stones of Göbekli Tepe, it hums like a throat singing the memory of stars. The carved animals seem to shift under the moonlight, their shapes alive with motion. One might imagine that the hands which carved them were guided by something beyond the human pulse, a rhythm inherited from another world. Perhaps those who built these sanctuaries were not worshipping gods, but remembering teachers. Perhaps they understood that the divine was not above, but beneath, the intelligence of matter itself, awake and aware. In the end, the question returns, quiet and persistent. What if the giants never truly disappeared? What if their presence endures, not in fossil or bone, but in the architecture of thought? Every act of creation, every moment of wonder, may be a faint echo of their original gesture. We build temples of stone and light because somewhere deep within us, the memory of the first builders still stirs. And so the earth keeps its counsel. Its mountains are tombs, its rivers veins of forgotten blood. The sky turns, indifferent yet watchful. In the silence between lightning and thunder, one might hear the faintest whisper, a wordless reminder that history is not a line, but a circle. The giants walk still, not in flesh, but in memory, and every dawn is their return. There are places on this planet where time itself feels fractured, where the air seems to hum with the residue of something ancient that refuses to die. Deep beneath the sands of Egypt, under the great limestone plateau of Giza, tunnels run for miles, sealed passages cut with impossible precision, leading into chambers untouched for thousands of years. Archaeologists have mapped only fragments of this subterranean labyrinth, but local accounts, dating back to the time of Herodotus, speak of entire cities beneath the pyramids, halls of stone so vast that torches burned for days without finding a wall's end. The ancients called it the land of the hidden ones. Modern Egyptologists dismiss such tales as exaggeration, yet whispers persist. In 1935, during a British survey near the Sphinx, explorers stumbled upon a shaft descending nearly 100 feet into the bedrock. Beneath it lay a chamber lined with smooth black basalt, perfectly fitted without mortar. At its center stood a sarcophagus, empty but massive, carved from a single block of granite so hard that modern drills could barely penetrate it. The chamber was later sealed again, officially for safety reasons, unofficially for secrecy. Those who descended reported strange acoustic phenomena, vibrations that caused dizziness and nausea, as if the stone itself was alive with low-frequency resonance. The ancients may have used these frequencies for ritual or communication. Or perhaps the chamber was not made for humans at all. What if the pyramids were not tombs, but machines, instruments designed to manipulate energy, to preserve something far older than Egyptian civilization? The idea is dismissed as pseudoscience, but anomalies abound. At Giza, the internal geometry of the Great Pyramid corresponds with mathematical constants that were unknown to ancient architects. The speed of light, the ratio of Earth's circumference to its radius, the harmonics of planetary orbits. The blocks themselves, weighing up to 80 tons, were transported from quarries hundreds of kilometers away. The cuts are so precise that even a razor cannot pass between them. When sound is produced within the king's chamber, it resonates at exactly 432 hertz, a frequency that some physicists associate with the vibrational harmony of organic life. Coincidence, perhaps. But what if the structure itself was built to speak to the planet, to maintain resonance between matter and consciousness? In myth, Egypt's gods were giants, Osiris, Horus, Thoth, depicted not merely as deities, but as engineers of the cosmos. The Edfu texts carved into temple walls describe a primeval island where the builders of the first time descended from the sky after the Great Flood, bringing knowledge of mathematics, astronomy, and architecture. They were said to have built sanctuaries to preserve the essence of life before the waters rose again. The texts name them the Shebtu, the Shining Ones, and hint that they came from the west, across a sea that no longer exists. If these stories hold even a trace of memory, they suggest that Egypt inherited not invention, but remembrance. Its monuments may be archives, not creations. In the 1960s, seismic studies beneath the Sphinx detected anomalies, vast cavities hidden beneath its paws. Decades later, the Egyptian government denied access to independent researchers, citing preservation concerns. Yet leaked reports from the Edgar Cayce Foundation claimed that one of these cavities contained a chamber lined with quartz, its walls engraved with unfamiliar symbols, and a single crystalline structure at its center, like a sarcophagus made of light. Cayce called it the Hall of Records, the memory vault of Atlantis. To mainstream archaeology, it is myth. But to those who have heard the hum beneath the Sphinx's paws, a deep, steady vibration felt more than heard. It is something else. The heartbeat of the forgotten. The Egyptians themselves believed that knowledge was not discovered but remembered. The word for wisdom, Soaa, literally meant to recall. Their priests trained for decades to awaken memories of the first time, Zep Tepi, when gods walked the earth. What if those memories were not metaphors? What if they were genetic echoes, the remnants of a species that once coexisted with us, larger in both form and consciousness? The Book of the Dead speaks of beings who measured the heavens with their stride. The walls of Dendera show figures of immense proportion, holding bulbs of light connected by filaments. The bas-reliefs are often dismissed as symbolic art, yet their technical accuracy is unsettling. They suggest a civilization that understood energy not as electricity, but as vibration, a science of resonance beyond modern grasp. At Saqqara, archaeologists uncovered the Serapeum, a series of underground chambers, each containing gigantic granite boxes, 30 tons apiece, polished to mirror finish. No inscriptions, no mummies, no decoration, only silence and precision. When one stands before these boxes, sound behaves differently. Whispers linger, vibrations hum through the chest. It is as though the chambers are tuned to frequencies that bypass language. Engineers who tested the granite found traces of piezoelectric properties, materials that convert mechanical stress into electrical charge. Were these boxes ancient power cells? Or containment vessels for something less physical, the resonance of consciousness itself? In many esoteric traditions, stone is not inert matter, but memory, a crystalline lattice that records vibration. If consciousness leaves an imprint, then perhaps the giants who came before us encoded their essence into the very architecture of the earth. Every megalith, every monolith would thus be an instrument, a bridge between material and immaterial worlds. The pyramids, ziggurats, and temples across continents would form a planetary network designed not for domination but for preservation. When catastrophe struck, the deluge, the fire, the fall of their world, these structures would remain as nodes, preserving the pattern of their knowledge until humanity evolved enough to hear it again. The myth of Atlantis may be more than allegory. Plato's account, drawn from Solon's retelling of Egyptian priests, describes a civilization destroyed by flood and fire, its knowledge scattered. But even Plato admitted the story was ancient when he heard it. Modern oceanography has mapped submerged structures off Cuba, the Azores, and Japan, geometric forms too precise to be natural. Off the coast of India, the ruins of Dwarka lie beneath the waves, dated to nearly 10,000 years ago. Columns, steps, and streets now home to coral, another city drowned by time. Each discovery pushes civilization's boundary further back, closer to the edge of memory, where myth begins. In the desert south of Giza, aerial scans have revealed buried foundations arranged in perfect geometric grids. They stretch for kilometers, aligned with celestial poles and equinoxes. Some believe this to be an undiscovered necropolis. Others think it is the remains of an ancient power field, a system of harmonic structures designed to stabilize the planet's magnetic field after the last cataclysm. If true, then the builders were not simply architects, but planetary engineers, using geometry as a language of balance. The ancients said, "As above, so below." The pattern of stars mirrored on Earth's surface might not be symbolic at all, but functional, a resonance map of the cosmos inscribed into the body of the planet. And yet all of this remains conjecture, denied, ridiculed, or dismissed by those who protect the orthodoxy of history. Museums display fragments of truth behind glass, stripped of their mystery. But in the cracks of that certainty, another story breathes. In 1988, a worker repairing a drainage tunnel near the Giza Plateau discovered a sealed passage. Inside were hieroglyphs, unlike any known form, depicting beings with elongated skulls and towering bodies, surrounded by serpentine symbols. The walls emitted faint electromagnetic readings. The entrance was sealed the next day. No official record exists. Yet rumors circulate among locals that the site leads to a vast chamber extending under the Nile, a place the priests once called Netertau, the corridor of the gods. Perhaps these stories persist because they contain something that refuses to be silenced. The earth may be older than we dare to imagine, and humanity younger than it believes. Between those two truths lies an immense silence, the memory of those who came before, hidden in stone. The giants of old may not return as bodies of flesh, but their architecture is already awake. The resonance hums through the pyramids, through basalt, through the atoms of every rock and bone. We are surrounded by their echoes, breathing within the monuments of their grief. As night falls over Giza, the desert cools into stillness. The stars align with the tips of the pyramids, forming a triangle of light that mirrors Orion's belt. The constellation was sacred to Osiris, god of resurrection, lord of the underworld, the giant who died and was reborn as the soul of the Nile. Perhaps this alignment was never about worship, but remembrance, a cosmic timestamp, marking the moment when the builders would return. The sands shift, the wind sighs through the hollow chambers, and somewhere beneath the stone, a vibration stirs, low, steady, eternal. The earth waits. The silence is not absence, but preparation. And above it all, the stars blink, patient, indifferent, knowing. The question lingers, soft as breath against the dunes. Were the pyramids built to honor the gods, or to remember what it means to be one? The ocean holds more memory than land ever could. Beneath its still surface lies a library of worlds, drowned cities, fractured continents, whispers sealed in silt and coral. Every wave that breaks on the shore is a fragment of something ancient, a voice returning from a civilization erased not by time, but by water. In the deep, the stories of the giants continue, not as bones or ruins, but as the silence between heartbeats, the lull after the flood. Marine archaeologists have long known that the sea hides what the land cannot bear. In the early 2000s, sonar scans off the coast of Cuba revealed structures nearly 700 meters below the surface, vast geometric shapes arranged in perfect alignment, resembling roads, pyramids, and plazas. The divers who descended described columns rising like teeth from the ocean floor, covered in coral but unmistakably carved. The stones were massive, larger than those of Giza, some etched with patterns that looked like concentric spirals. Initial analyses suggested that the site could be more than 10,000 years old, dating back to the end of the last ice age, a time when rising seas swallowed entire regions of the continental shelf. If true, it meant that civilization did not begin in Mesopotamia or the Nile, but along the vanished coastlines now buried beneath the Atlantic and Pacific. It meant that our oldest stories, the flood of Noah, the sinking of Atlantis, the deluge of Deucalion, the drowning of Lemuria, were not myths, but memories of the same event, told in different tongues. The ocean does not distinguish between cultures. It takes everything equally. But in its depths, fragments of that older world remain, preserved in cold and darkness. Off the coast of Japan, near Yonaguni, another mystery sleeps beneath the waves. In 1986, a diver named Kihachiro Aratake discovered a vast underwater complex, terraces, steps, platforms, and monoliths cut with machine-like precision. The main structure rose nearly 75 feet, resembling a ziggurat or temple. The surfaces were scored with patterns, intersecting lines, precise right angles, channels that looked like water conduits. At first, scientists claimed it was a natural formation, shaped by tectonic forces. But further study revealed tool marks, symmetrical designs, and the remains of what appeared to be pathways and staircases. Marine geologists later confirmed that parts of the site had once been above sea level, roughly 12,000 years ago, before the seas rose. That date again, the Younger Dryas, the age of the last great flood. Across the globe, other sites tell the same story. The ruins of Dwarka in India, submerged beneath the Gulf of Kambat, the sunken temples of Lake Titicaca, the megalithic roads off the Bahama banks, the ancient causeways now entombed in the Black Sea. All of them bear signs of human, or something close to human, craftsmanship, older than any accepted timeline of civilization. The precision of their design suggests engineering knowledge that should not have existed, and yet there they are. Mute witnesses beneath the waves, untouched and unacknowledged. Legends from every corner of the world speak of beings who ruled before the flood, tall, radiant, and wise. In the Pacific, the Polynesians speak of the Manoon, the first navigators, who could call winds with their voices. In the Mediterranean, the Atlanteans were said to have harnessed crystals that channeled the Earth's energy, maintaining perfect balance between nature and technology. The Tamil texts of southern India describe a continent called Kumari Kandam, ruled by sages so advanced they could communicate across oceans. In Mesoamerica, the Olmecs built colossal heads with features that seemed foreign to the region, as though remembering ancestors from another world. These stories do not contradict one another. They rhyme, like verses of a forgotten epic. Scientists argue that the flood myths are simply metaphors for rising sea levels after the Ice Age. But metaphors do not leave ruins. They do not carve stairways into the seafloor or leave city grids etched into basalt. Something more tangible must have existed. A civilization so vast that when it fell, its fragments became the legends of every people that followed. Perhaps the giants were not merely creatures of immense stature, but custodians of that world. Beings who mastered both stone and sea, capable of shaping tides as easily as we shape thought. In ancient Mesopotamian texts, the flood is described as an act of the gods, a reset, a cleansing. The Sumerian king Ziusudra, like Noah, was warned by one of the Anunnaki to build a vessel before the waters came. The gods, it was said, wept as humanity drowned, regretting what had been erased. Yet among the survivors were not just humans, but the great ones, those who carried the seed of forgotten wisdom. They would wander the world, teaching the new generations to rebuild. Could it be that the monumental works found after the flood, the pyramids, the megaliths, the star maps, were their attempt to restore a lost equilibrium? Oceanographers studying isotopic records have found evidence of sudden, catastrophic sea level rises. Not gradual melting, but surges that drowned continents within months. The last occurred roughly 11,600 years ago, aligning precisely with Plato's account of Atlantis's fall. He wrote that the island nation lay beyond the Pillars of Heracles, the Strait of Gibraltar, and that it sank in a single day and night of misfortune. Scholars have long dismissed this as allegory, yet sonar scans west of the Azores reveal topographic anomalies, symmetrical ridges, submerged peaks, and what appear to be artificial terraces. If these are natural, they are remarkably unnatural in their geometry. Imagine it. An island once spanning thousands of kilometers, ruled by a race of beings who harnessed both crystal and resonance, who could draw energy from the planet's core and the movement of the stars. Their temples shimmered with light drawn from the ocean itself, their cities pulsed with rhythm rather than machinery. Then, a shift, a celestial event, a comet's tail, a solar flare, a tilt of the Earth's axis, and the seas rose like an angry god. The sound of their civilization drowned, but not its memory. That memory was carried inland, encoded into myth, sculpted into mountains and monuments. Some traditions say the giants did not die, but retreated beneath the waves, building their own world in the abyss. The Dogon of Mali speak of the Nomo, amphibious beings, luminous and tall, who came from the water to teach mathematics, astronomy, and language. Their depictions show elongated bodies and fish-like skin, eerily similar to Mesopotamian carvings of Oannes, the half-man, half-fish sage who emerged from the sea each morning to instruct humanity. These are not isolated myths. The same motif repeats across continents, as if the ocean itself were the womb of civilization, birthing and reclaiming its children in cycles of creation and loss. Marine biologists exploring deep-sea anomalies near the mid-Atlantic ridge have reported inexplicable sounds, rhythmic, structured vibrations unlike any known geological phenomenon. The frequencies repeat at regular intervals, resembling harmonic sequences used in acoustic engineering. Instruments fail in their presence, compasses spin. Some dismiss it as seismic noise, but others suspect a buried mechanism, an echo of what once powered the world before us. If the giants built machines, they would not have been of metal and fire, but of sound and pressure, harmonized with the heartbeat of the planet. When light filters through water, it bends, refracts, distorts. Perhaps the truth, too, lies bent beneath the ocean's surface, refracted between science and myth. To the rational mind, the idea of pre-human giants building oceanic civilizations is fantasy. Yet every discovery that pushes human history further back edges closer to that fantasy's shadow. Göbekli Tepe, Gunung Padang, Dwarka, each one erodes the timeline we once thought immutable. Perhaps we are not discovering our beginnings, but rediscovering what was lost, one ruin at a time. If memory survives through matter, then the ocean floor is the archive of our first teachers. The salt preserves what air would decay. In the black quiet of the deep, pillars still stand, their surfaces caressed by currents like the breath of ghosts. Fish swim through doorways that once framed the light of suns now forgotten. Coral grows where gardens once bloomed. The sea, in its strange mercy, turns all tragedy into beauty. At night, when waves break against the shore, one can almost hear it, a rhythm beneath the wind, deep and resonant, like a giant heart still beating under the water. The ancients might have called it the breath of Poseidon or the pulse of Leviathan. Perhaps it is the earth itself remembering. We live upon its surface like children playing on a drowned city, oblivious to the architecture beneath our feet. Yet, in dreams, some part of us remembers towers of crystal, voices of thunder, beings who walked among stars and oceans alike. One day the sea will retreat again, as it always has. The continents will shift, and what was hidden will rise once more. Then the ruins will speak, and we will find not gods or monsters but reflections, tall, ancient, patient, waiting for us to understand. For in every legend of flood and fall, there lies a promise that memory is never truly lost, only submerged. The giants of the deep do not sleep. They are the silence between tides, the architects of forgetting, the keepers of the world's oldest truth. And as the moon pulls the sea toward the shore, as the waves draw breath and exhale into the night, the question lingers in the hush. Was it water that erased them, or mercy? Every myth begins with fire. It is the element that both gives and erases, that transforms stone to glass and memory to ash. Long before cities were drowned by water, some were turned to dust by flame. There are layers in the earth where the soil itself seems to have burned, strata fused into glass, rocks melted as if by heat beyond nature. Archaeologists find them scattered across the world, vitrified forts in Scotland, glassy walls in Turkey, scorched ruins in the Indus Valley and the Sinai. The stones are not blackened by ordinary fire. They are fused, as though once exposed to temperatures exceeding 2,000 degrees. Some call it volcanic, others a forgotten war. Yet, when the same signs appear on 4 continents, separated by oceans and millennia, the explanation begins to feel smaller than the evidence. Perhaps the ancients witnessed something cosmic, an impact, a flare, a storm from the heavens. Or perhaps it was something they themselves unleashed, a technology misunderstood, a power lost in the turning of ages. The Mahabharata, India's ancient epic, speaks of weapons that shone like 10,000 suns, that turned bodies to ash and sand to glass. Scholars read it as metaphor. But in 1970, scientists studying desert sands near Rajasthan discovered fused silica and radioactive isotopes consistent with low-grade nuclear detonation. No craters, no meteorites, only a field of melted earth stretching for miles. The ruins nearby show patterns of destruction identical to Hiroshima. Yet, these ruins are older than written history. To imagine a world where such power existed before the known age of man is to step into an abyss of unrecorded time. The giants of legend, the Nephilim, the Shebtu, the Watchers, were not merely builders. In every surviving text, they are also destroyers. In Sumer, they bring the flood. In Greece, Zeus casts lightning to end their rebellion. In the Norse sagas, the gods battle the Jötnar until fire consumes the sky. These myths may not be separate stories at all, but memories of the same cataclysm, retold by survivors through the smoke of loss. At Göbekli Tepe, microlayers of carbon and iron dust indicate a sudden burning event around 10,800 BCE, the precise onset of the Younger Dryas. Across North America, a black mat of soot marks the same moment. Mammoths vanished, climates shifted, forests burned. Theories abound: a comet impact, solar plasma, a geomagnetic reversal. Yet, what if the event was neither natural nor accidental? What if it was the closing act of a forgotten war, a cleansing by fire that ended an age of giants. In fragments of Zoroastrian scripture, there is mention of the War of the Builders, fought between the Ahuras, beings of light, and the Devas, those who turned from the law. The battlefield, it says, was the roof of the world, where fire descended and the air became poison. The same imagery appears in Mesoamerican codices, which speak of gods battling in the sky until the heavens fell and the ground burned. Across cultures, fire is not merely punishment, but reset, an unmaking followed by rebirth. The giants fall, the smaller beings inherit the ashes, and the cycle begins again. Modern scientists scoff at the notion of ancient cataclysms caused by intelligence. Yet even they admit that something extraordinary occurred near the end of the Pleistocene, an event that almost erased life from the planet. Ice melted faster than models can explain, magnetic fields shifted unpredictably, radiation spikes appear in ice core samples. Some hypothesize a solar outburst, others an atmospheric explosion. None can explain the vitrification, the fusion of rock scattered across the globe. It is as though the planet itself was scorched from within by energy once harnessed, then lost. The giants of myth were said to have possessed command over both sound and light, technologies that blurred the boundary between science and spirituality. In the Vedas, their weapons are described as mantras, uttered vibrations that shaped matter. If the pyramids and megaliths were machines of resonance, perhaps these mantras were the keys that powered them. Sound, after all, can move stone, levitate particles, break atoms. Modern physics calls this sonoluminescence, light born from sound within water. The ancients may have known this long before we rediscovered it in laboratories. To destroy, they needed only to invert creation's frequency. Among the Hopi, there is a tale of 3 worlds destroyed, first by fire, then by ice, then by flood. In each, a few survivors escaped through the guidance of tall, luminous beings who led them to safety underground. The survivors were told that when humanity grew arrogant again, the 4th world would also end by fire once more. Archaeologists dismiss these tales as allegory, but the Hopi remember them as history. Their prophecies align with global cycles of destruction, echoing the rhythm of geological time. What if these stories are not warnings but blueprints, records of a repeating cosmic rhythm? Civilizations rise, reach a threshold of knowledge, then vanish. Each leaves behind clues disguised as myth. The fire that ended the age of the giants may not have been their punishment, but their design, a self-destruction meant to cleanse what could no longer remain in harmony with the earth. In Siberia's Tunguska region, a massive explosion flattened 2,000 square kilometers of forest in 1908. No crater, no debris. Witnesses described a pillar of fire descending from the sky. Scientists identified it as a meteor, yet none was found. Local Evenki elders spoke instead of the sky people's weapon, awakening again after long sleep. They believed a fragment of ancient energy, buried deep within the earth, had flared for a moment before returning to silence. Modern instruments later detected strange electromagnetic anomalies in the area, a hum that persists even now. Across the deserts of Africa, stones aligned in patterns stretch toward the horizon. Burnt, magnetic, crystalline. The site at Nabta Playa, older than Stonehenge, shows evidence of both celestial mapping and intense heat exposure. The stones appear partially melted, as if scorched by plasma discharge. yet their arrangement mirrors constellations as they appeared 12,000 years ago. Orion, Sirius, the Milky Way, the same cosmic triad found in Giza and Angkor. Were these alignments meant to honor the heavens, or to stabilize a planet recovering from cataclysm? The remnants of fire are everywhere, but so are the echoes of mercy. The few who survived, the smaller humans who emerged from the ashes, carried fragments of their predecessors' knowledge. They built with less grandeur, but remembered the pattern. From Mesopotamia to the Andes, the same techniques appear: Cyclopean masonry, solar alignment, harmonic proportion. It is as though an invisible hand guided their recovery, whispering through genetic memory. Perhaps those who perished by fire ensured that their legacy would endure through us, not as dominance, but as remembrance. There is a strange beauty in the idea that destruction and creation are inseparable. The giants may have burned their world not in rage, but in sorrow, understanding that each ending births renewal. Their temples became our mountains, their fire became our sun. Even the myths that paint them as villains may simply be history written by survivors, unable to comprehend the magnitude of what they had witnessed. In the modern age, humanity toys again with forces it barely understands: atomic fire, genetic manipulation, artificial intelligence. Each advance mirrors the myths of the first civilization. We too have become the giants of our own time, reshaping nature, rewriting its laws. And perhaps, like them, we are approaching our threshold. The cycle waits patiently. The earth does not punish, it rebalances. At night, in certain deserts, strange lights flicker near ancient ruins, silent flashes of blue and white, moving against the wind. Scientists call them plasma discharges, caused by piezoelectric stress in the rocks. But local legends claim otherwise. They say the lights are the memory of fire, wandering souls of the builders who perished in the great burning. Sometimes, if one stands long enough in that quiet, a low hum begins beneath the sand, rising and fading like breath. The ancients might have called it the voice of the earth, or perhaps the mourning of the giants. The vitrified stones, the melted temples, the stories of cosmic fire. They all converge into a single question: did the giants destroy themselves to save the planet, or to prevent us from becoming them? In every myth, the gods warn their creations against hubris, against reaching too high. Perhaps the warning was not moral, but practical, a reminder that knowledge without harmony leads to flame. When lightning crawls across the sky and thunder shakes the horizon, the air smells faintly of ozone and memory. In that instant, one can almost feel it, the echo of an age when beings of immense power walked beneath a sun that burned whiter than ours. Their voices may still hum through the crust of the earth, encoded in frequencies we have forgotten how to hear. Fire ended them, but in doing so, it also preserved them, not as fossils, but as energy, pulsing quietly in the bones of the planet. Every civilization carries within it the seed of its own undoing. Perhaps that is not tragedy, but design, a ritual of transformation written into the cosmos itself. The giants rose, burned, and vanished, but their story did not end. It became ours. And when our own fires come, whether from the stars or our own hands, maybe we too will leave behind only silence and stone, and a whisper in the wind that says, "Begin again." The earth forgets slowly. Its memory is not in words or monuments, but in the quiet magnetism of stone, in the faint hum of mountains under pressure, in the language of minerals rearranged by time. Long after civilizations turn to dust, the planet still remembers the weight of their footsteps. The stories of the giants, those who came before, linger not only in myth or ruin, but in the deep magnetic script written beneath our feet. In 1978, while surveying the Altai Mountains in Siberia, a team of geophysicists discovered something peculiar. Beneath several layers of permafrost, magnetic readings indicated a structure: symmetrical, metallic, vast. Ground-penetrating radar revealed geometric anomalies stretching for hundreds of meters, arranged in parallel lines that could not be natural. When a drill core was taken, fragments of a strange alloy were recovered, unlike any known composition. It was both metallic and organic, showing lattice patterns that resembled bone under magnification. The site was sealed by the state soon after. The official explanation referred to a meteorite impact. Yet those who worked there whispered of something older, buried intentionally, like a machine entombed by its creators. Across the world, similar discoveries accumulate quietly, fragments of an ancient technology woven through geology itself. In Africa's Gabon region, scientists found a uranium deposit that had undergone sustained nuclear fission 2 billion years ago. A natural reactor, they said. But the isotopic balance suggested design, not accident. In the deserts of Bolivia, strange stone spheres, polished like mercury, emit faint electromagnetic fields. In the frozen soils of Antarctica, radar imaging reveals structures beneath the ice, hexagonal patterns extending for miles, as if the continent once hosted a grid of colossal architecture. The magnetic poles themselves shift unpredictably, as though pulled by invisible remnants buried deep within the crust. It is tempting to see coincidence, to believe these anomalies are geological quirks. Yet, when viewed through the lens of myth, a pattern begins to emerge. The giants were said to command energies not external, but planetary, the life currents of the earth itself. The Vedic texts speak of Vamana, cities that flew on the breath of the world, drawing power from the coils beneath the ground. The ancient Chinese called it dragon energy, the movement of Earth's veins. Indigenous Australians mapped song lines that follow electromagnetic ley paths across the continent, believing them to be the arteries of creation. Everywhere, the same idea appears, that the planet is alive, conscious, and those who understood its pulse could move mountains. If the giants mastered this energy, their technology would not have resembled ours. They would not have used combustion or circuits, but resonance, tuning the natural frequencies of stone and metal to channel power directly from the earth. The pyramids, obelisks, and stone circles scattered across the globe might then be components of a single planetary network, a harmonized system designed to balance magnetic fields and sustain the planet's biosphere. When that system collapsed, so did the age of the giants. Perhaps it was not the flood or the fire that ended them, but the quiet unraveling of a grid that once connected heaven and earth. In the Andes, the fortress of Sacsayhuaman is built from stones so immense that even modern engineers puzzle at their construction. Each block is carved with interlocking precision, fitting seamlessly into its neighbor despite weighing up to 300 tons. Local legends say it was built by the Viracochas, tall beings with pale skin and radiant eyes who moved stones with sound. Modern acoustics demonstrates that sound waves can indeed alter matter, levitate objects, shift sand, carve through stone. Ancient texts from Tibet to Egypt describe this same technique, using harmonics to lift massive weights. The giants may have treated sound not as art, but as architecture. Their temples, instruments tuned to the earth's hum. In 2014, researchers recorded infrasound vibrations beneath the Great Pyramid. The frequencies corresponded to Earth's Schumann resonance, 7.83 Hz, the natural electromagnetic rhythm of the planet. The pyramid, it seemed, amplified this resonance, pulsing in harmony with the Earth itself. Perhaps that was its true function. Not a tomb, but a stabilizer, keeping planetary energy in balance. When the resonance faltered, catastrophe followed. The legends of floods, quakes, and fire may be echoes of such global dissonance, the Earth correcting itself when its harmony was broken. In this sense, the giants were not conquerors, but custodians, engineers of equilibrium. They understood the Earth as organism, not resource. They built with awareness of its pulse. When they vanished, humanity inherited only fragments of their knowledge, the geometry, the myth, the awe, but not the understanding. We continued to build, to dig, to consume, without hearing the low song beneath our feet. Each century that passes, the song grows fainter, replaced by the mechanical hum of our own making. Yet, traces of their voice persist. In megalithic chambers from Ireland to Malta, frequencies between 110 and 120 Hz amplify human brainwaves, inducing trance. The ancients may have used these spaces to attune themselves to planetary vibration. To remember, the carved spirals and labyrinths found in these sites are not decoration, but diagrams, maps of resonance. Every spiral echoes the motion of magnetic fields, the double helix of DNA, the vortex of galaxies. It is the same pattern, repeated from atom to cosmos. The giants understood this symmetry. To them, matter and consciousness were reflections of the same spiral. One could be altered by tuning the other. Perhaps this is why their monuments remain. They are instruments still resonating faintly, waiting for listeners who can hear them again. Modern sensors placed near ancient sites detect unusual electromagnetic fluctuations during solstices and eclipses. As if these structures awaken briefly when the sky aligns, even after millennia of ruin, the architecture continues to breathe, pulsing with an invisible rhythm. The builders may be gone, but their design endures, self-sustaining, eternal. There is a strange melancholy in imagining a civilization that spoke the language of the earth, only to vanish into its silence. The giants may have withdrawn not because of defeat, but because of mercy, understanding that the planet required rest from their interference. In some traditions, they are said to have descended into the ground, joining the earth's core, becoming its consciousness. The Norse spoke of Ymir, the first giant, whose body became the world. The Mayans described Bakab, 4 giant brothers who hold the sky. Each myth hints at the same truth. The giants did not die. They became the planet itself. Their hearts beat as volcanoes, their veins flow as rivers, their breath moves as wind. When we walk the earth, we walk upon their memory. In the 1980s, deep-sea probes in the Pacific detected rhythmic pulses of magnetic activity emanating from the ocean floor, regular, timed, almost mechanical. The pattern repeated every 26,000 years, the length of the precession of the equinoxes. Scientists called it coincidence. But ancient texts call that period a great year, a cosmic cycle after which the world renews. The giants may have built their system to operate on this rhythm, to reset the planet's frequency at the end of each age. If so, we are living near the close of one such cycle now. The earth trembles, storms grow fiercer, poles wander. The resonance changes. Perhaps the machinery beneath our feet is stirring again. To feel the earth in this way, as a living intelligence, is to remember what the giants once knew. In modern science, we call it the Gaia hypothesis. But the ancients did not need theory. They could feel it in their bones. Their rituals, songs, and temples were forms of communication with the planet. Not worship, but dialogue. When we meditate, when we listen to the wind, when we stand in stillness beneath the stars, perhaps we are tuning, however faintly, to the same ancient frequency. There are legends of certain mountains, Kailash in Tibet, Shasta in California, Uluru in Australia, said to be gateways to the inner world of the giants. Pilgrims report hearing low vibrations near these peaks, sounds that seem to come from within the stone. Some experience visions, others faint. The magnetic readings near such sites are unstable, fluctuating like a heartbeat. Perhaps these are the pulse points of the planetary body, remnants of the giants' network still alive beneath the crust, whispering their slow geological language. If the giants exist still, they do so as the consciousness of the world itself, immense, patient, beyond form. We might sense them only through dreams, through the hum of distant storms, through the shiver of ground beneath our feet. The ancients called them gods because they could not imagine beings so vast. But gods and giants may be the same, emanations of an earth that once awoke to its own mind. The night sky mirrors this truth. As above, so below. The constellations we trace are reflections of the grid once mapped upon the ground. The pyramids echo Orion, the temples echo Sirius, the stone circles echo the Milky Way. The giants built in alignment with the cosmos because they understood it as a single body, Earth as its heart, stars as its veins. When they vanished, they left the pattern for us to rediscover. Every act of wonder we feel when we look at the sky is their whisper. Remember what you are part of. Perhaps one day we will listen fully again. Perhaps the hum beneath the ground will grow louder, and we will finally understand that the giants never left, that they became the world, and we are there dreaming. Until then, the earth waits, its silence heavy with remembrance. Mountains breathe in centuries, rivers carry secrets, lightning writes across the sky like nervous thought. If we could hear beyond our noise, we might recognize the oldest truth of all, that the gods we seek were never in heaven, but beneath us, asleep, their consciousness woven into the magnetic song of the world. And when they wake again, it will not be with thunder or flame, but with a tremor in the soul of humanity, a remembering that shakes the foundations of history itself. There are nights when the sky seems to lean closer to the earth, as though the heavens themselves are listening. The air grows still, the stars burn with unnatural clarity, and somewhere in that silence, the line between myth and memory begins to blur. For thousands of years, humankind has looked upward, searching for the origin of its own reflection, a question carved into every civilization's heart. Where did we come from? Who walked before us? And why does the night sky feel like a mirror, showing not what is above, but what has already been below? In the oldest texts, there is a strange convergence. The Sumerians spoke of the Anunnaki, those who descended from the heavens. The Maya told of the visitors from the Pleiades, beings who brought calendars and corn. The Dogon of Mali described the Nomo, amphibious teachers who emerged from Sirius long before telescopes revealed its invisible companion star. The Egyptians built their temples in alignment with Orion, believing the souls of the pharaohs would return to the stars where the gods once came from. These are not isolated myths. They are fragments of one story, a story that may not begin on this planet at all. In the high deserts of Peru, the Nazca lines stretch across hundreds of square kilometers, immense geometric designs, visible only from the sky. Some depict animals, others strange figures with large heads and elongated limbs. Archaeologists call them ritual pathways or astronomical calendars, yet their precision defies such simplicity. The lines are carved with laser-like accuracy, straight for miles without deviation. To draw them, one would have needed to see from above, as if guided by a vantage point not bound to the ground. The local Quechua people still whisper that the lines were messages, invitations, or perhaps memories left by those who flew. Modern scientists reject these interpretations, but they cannot explain the electromagnetic anomalies that hover above the lines, the faint ionized field that makes compasses drift and batteries fail. Something in the desert hums, faint but constant, as if waiting for a response. Perhaps these lines are not drawings at all, but circuitry, an ancient communication grid that once linked heaven and earth. In a world where sound and magnetism were languages, such markings could have been a form of dialogue with the sky. The connection between giants and the stars is older than history itself. In nearly every myth, they are described as celestial, beings of light descended from constellations. The Norse called them Etins, born from the cosmic frost of Ginnungagap. The Greeks called them the Titans, born of Uranus and Gaia, sky and earth. The Mesopotamians called them the Watchers, those who observe from the heavens. Each story repeats the same pattern. Sky falls to earth, mingles with matter, and creates life that is both human and divine. The giants were not separate from the stars. They were their embodiment, the cosmos taking form, experimenting with consciousness in flesh. If this sounds like myth, consider the strange evidence found in stone. Across continents, from the Andes to the Himalayas, carvings depict figures in helmets, suits, and breathing apparatus, motifs inexplicable for their age. In Val Camonica, Italy, petroglyphs show tall beings with circular heads emitting rays of light. In Abydos, Egypt, hieroglyphs bear the shapes of aircraft and submarines. In Mesoamerican codices, feathered serpents descend from the heavens, surrounded by fire. To us, they are symbols. To those who carved them, perhaps they were memory. Witnesses recording the return of the Sky Fathers, as they called them. And yet not all contact was gentle. Many myths speak of wars between the gods, the battle of the Nephilim against the divine order, the fall of the Watchers, the rebellion of the Titans. Perhaps these are not moral allegories, but recollections of real conflicts, rivalries among beings who were once our progenitors. Some scholars have noticed a strange consistency in the timing of these myths. Each coincides with an epochal change, floods, ice, fire. What if these celestial wars were not fought in the heavens, but on earth itself, their aftermath recorded in cataclysm, In 1996, during excavations near Lake Baikal in Russia, divers uncovered a fossilized structure resembling a humanoid skull, twice the size of a human's, with a cranial cavity elongated backward and bone density unknown to any known species. The discovery was briefly reported, then retracted. Rumors spread that the artifact had been seized by military authorities. Later, leaked photos surfaced online. A perfectly preserved skull, smooth as marble, with enormous eye sockets, and a ridge where no human anatomy allows one. The story vanished quickly, but for those who study forbidden archaeology, it became one more whisper in a chorus too large to ignore. If the giants were indeed born of the stars, their remnants would not only rest in soil, but in our very DNA. In 2015, geneticists at the Max Planck Institute found fragments in the human genome that could not be traced to any known ancestor, neither Neanderthal nor Denisovan. The sequences were dubbed ghost genes, relics of an unknown lineage that interbred with early humans around 50,000 years ago. Scientists called it a mystery, a statistical anomaly. Yet to those who remember the old stories, it sounds like something else. Proof of hybridization between heaven and earth. We are not the first. We are the echo. Across ancient temples and tombs, the motif of the star seed appears, a symbol of light descending into matter, of divinity mingling with clay. The Egyptians placed it in the brow of Osiris, the Mayans carved it into obsidian, the Celts hid it in the spiral of stone. It represented a truth older than religion, that life did not arise here by accident. The giants, perhaps, were the gardeners of this planet, sowing consciousness like seeds in a field of evolving matter. When their work was done, they withdrew, leaving only the faint resonance of their design, the golden ratio, the harmony of geometry, the blueprint of life itself. And yet, not all traces are harmonious. In 2018, astronomers recorded a repeating radio signal from deep space, a pattern of bursts at exact intervals, like coded communication. The source was traced to a dwarf galaxy 3 billion light-years away. The signal repeated every 157 days, a rhythm eerily similar to the precession cycle encoded in ancient monuments. Some dismissed it as a pulsar, others as interference. But there are those who hear in it a familiar cadence, the same pulse that hums beneath the pyramids, the same frequency that resonates through ancient stone. Could it be that the builders are calling across time, reminding their creation that the conversation is not over? If such beings once walked the earth, their withdrawal would not have been abandonment, but metamorphosis. They may have shed their physical form, merging with the consciousness of the cosmos itself. To us, that would appear as vanishing, ascension, the great forgetting. But to them, it would be evolution, the next stage of being. Perhaps that is why humanity dreams of the stars, why our myths are full of wings and fire. Somewhere deep within us, memory stirs, not of where we are going, but of where we came from. There are ancient accounts that describe their return. The Hopi speak of the Pahana, the shining elder brother who will come from the east at the end of the fourth world. The Maya called it the dawn of the fifth sun. In the Revelation of John, the heavens open and the sons of God return. Even the Hindu texts predict the reappearance of Kalki, a being of light riding upon the clouds to restore balance. Perhaps these are not prophecies, but cyclic inevitabilities. The stars that gave birth to the giants are still moving, their alignments repeating after tens of thousands of years. When the same constellations return to the same points, so too may the memory of their makers. In the shadow of this possibility, science begins to feel like rediscovery. Our spacecraft, our telescopes, our radio arrays, all are attempts to reopen the conversation once spoken in light and stone. The giants may not need to return because we are becoming them, stretching beyond our home, rewriting matter, dreaming of terraforming worlds as they once did. The cycle continues, unbroken. The child inherits the parent's question. Yet there is a warning written in that inheritance. The giant's fall was not failure but imbalance, the loss of harmony between power and purpose. When technology surpasses wisdom, the result is always silence. The myths call it divine punishment. Perhaps it was self-inflicted. Fire and flood, reset and rebirth. These are not acts of vengeance, but corrections. The cosmos protects its balance with indifference. To ascend without humility is to repeat the same collapse. Still, the stars remain patient. They have seen this story before. Their light travels for millions of years, carrying the memory of civilizations long gone. When we look up at them, we are not gazing into distance, but into time, the ancient echo of our own beginning. The giants may be there still, not as bodies, but as awareness scattered through the fabric of space, watching their descendants rediscover the tools they once used. Perhaps, in some sense, we have never been alone. We have only been asleep within their dream. In the deserts, on the mountaintops, in the depths of the sea, their traces glow faintly, in architecture, in geometry, in blood. Every myth, every ritual, every moment of awe is a doorway back to that shared origin. The giants were never gone. They are the bridge between creation and creator, the reminder that the divine does not dwell above, but within. And so, when the night grows quiet and the stars shimmer like scattered fire, one might feel it, the ancient presence, patient and immense, waiting for us to remember. Not gods, not aliens, not myths, but our own ancestors, watching from the horizon of eternity. They have always been here, in the hum of atoms, in the rhythm of tides, in the beating of hearts that still echo with the pulse of the stars. Perhaps the question is not whether they will return, but whether we will recognize them when they do, or if, by then, we will have already become them. Every age inherits its silence. Beneath the noise of our modern world, beneath engines, wires, and voices echoing through glass towers, there is a deeper stillness that waits, unchanged. It is the same stillness that lived under the waves of forgotten continents, under the dust of cities turned to myth, under the breath of beings whose names have faded from speech. Humanity walks upon their bones without hearing the pulse beneath, but sometimes, in places untouched by time, that silence speaks again. It does not use words, but vibration, a resonance that travels through stone, blood, and memory alike. In the late 20th century, a team of geologists in the Caucasus Mountains stumbled upon a discovery that defied every category. Embedded in layers of Jurassic limestone were metallic coils, screws, and rods, not the debris of industry, but fossils. The objects were tiny, some less than 2 millimeters long, yet their spiraled designs matched modern engineering standards. Radiocarbon dating placed the surrounding rock at over 100 million years old. The discovery was quickly dismissed as natural formations, though some of the scientists involved refused to sign the final report. One of them later claimed that the objects were part of a larger pattern, evidence of a technology that predated humanity, woven into the Earth's crust like circuitry. It is an unsettling thought that the planet itself might be a machine, or that it was once tended by intelligences who treated continents as components. The myths seem to remember this differently, not as machinery, but as divinity. The Sumerians said the earth was ruled by the Anunnaki, who mined its resources to rebuild their own world. The Greeks spoke of Atlas, condemned to hold the heavens upon his shoulders. The Hindus envisioned the world resting on the backs of colossal elephants. All metaphors for balance, perhaps, or maybe memory, refracted through the prism of myth. The giants might not have been gods or conquerors, but architects, engineers of equilibrium, whose work still hums beneath our feet. When explorers first reached the Himalayas, they found local monasteries speaking of the shining beings who retreated beneath the mountains after the Great Flood. The monks claimed that deep below the snowfields, entire caverns glowed with an inner light, cities without sun, where the last of the elder race waited for the surface to remember them. They called this realm Agharta, a sanctuary of giants turned luminous, their flesh transmuted into something like crystal. Western travelers dismissed the stories as allegory, but explorers continued to vanish in those ranges, leaving behind compasses that spun and clocks that froze. The same story echoes across cultures, in Tibet's Shambhala, in Central Asia's underground palaces, in the Hopi tales of the ant people who saved humanity from fire. Perhaps these are not separate myths, but fragments of one truth, that some of the giants did not die or ascend to the stars, but descended into the earth, becoming its hidden pulse. If so, the planet's occasional tremors, earthquakes, magnetic storms, volcanoes, might not be geological events at all, but the slow turning of something vast asleep below. In 2002, a group of spelunkers exploring caves near Lake Titicaca uncovered carvings unlike any Incan art, tall figures with elongated heads, hands extended in gestures of blessing. Behind them stretched tunnels cut with surgical precision, descending farther than light could reach. Measuring instruments failed beyond a certain depth, as if the rock itself interfered. One explorer reported a low-frequency hum, constant and directional, emanating from deep below. He described it as both mechanical and organic, a vibration that resonated in the bones, not the ears. The team was ordered to abandon the expedition after several fell ill, but recordings taken before the withdrawal captured the sound. When analyzed, the frequency matched the Schumann resonance of the planet almost exactly. If the giants went underground, perhaps they did not vanish into myth but into function, merging with the planet to sustain its balance. Ancient texts often describe them as guardians, not rulers, beings who maintained the harmony between earth, water, air, and fire. When that harmony was broken, through war, greed, or misuse of power, they retreated, allowing the surface to rebuild itself. The giants became legend, then symbol, then forgotten altogether. Yet every temple, pyramid, and mountain aligned to the stars seems to whisper their name through its symmetry. The earth still remembers them in structure, even if we do not. There are moments when this memory reawakens. In 2011, after an earthquake in Japan, seismologists detected signals preceding the tremor, pulses so regular and patterned that some mistook them for coded transmission. The same pattern was found in the wake of volcanic eruptions in Iceland and Chile. The frequencies were nearly identical, spaced at precise mathematical ratios, the same proportions used in ancient sacred architecture. It was as if the earth itself were communicating, using geometry as language. Perhaps these were the echoes of the giants, still guiding the rhythm of the planet from beneath, still correcting its balance. The ancients might have called them gods. Modern science calls them anomalies. In myth, light and sound are never separate. Creation begins with vibration, the spoken word, the song of being. The giants, if they existed, may have understood this far better than we do. They built not with force, but with resonance. The labyrinths under Giza, the honeycomb tunnels beneath Tibet, the crystalline chambers under the Andes, all might have been part of a vast acoustic network, tuned to planetary frequencies. Even now, researchers studying earthquakes find that the Earth sings. Its tremors form chords, harmonics that shift with the moon and the sun. It hums like a drum stretched across space, each vibration a note in an endless song. Perhaps that song is the heartbeat of the giants themselves, a reminder that we walk upon living memory. As above, so below. Just as the ancients believed the stars mapped the souls of gods, so they believed that caves were their reflections, entrances to the underworld, the reverse of heaven. In nearly every mythology, the underworld is ruled not by demons but by keepers, Hades, Osiris, Viracocha, Yama. Each was a giant of light, portrayed as both god and tomb guardian, preserving the passage between death and rebirth. The underground realms, then, were not prisons but wombs, sanctuaries where knowledge could sleep until the world was ready again. The giants, buried yet awake, may still dwell there, dreaming the earth into balance. Some researchers point to ancient maps as hints of this hidden world. The Piri Reis map of 1513 depicts Antarctica without ice, showing mountain ranges that were not discovered until the 20th century. The Orontius Phineus map, drawn decades later, repeats the same detail, an ice-free continent at the South Pole. How could medieval cartographers know this? Unless they were copying from older sources, atlases from a civilization that existed when Antarctica was green, when its tunnels and mountains were still open to the sun. Satellite imagery today reveals strange geometric formations beneath the ice, hexagonal ridges, circular depressions, linear corridors. The pattern resembles a city. Whether natural or not, the image stirs something ancient in the human mind. The intuition that the past is not buried, only sleeping. The more one listens, the more the earth begins to sound like a living instrument. Its poles shift like strings tightening, its crust vibrates in waves of rhythm. The giants may have once tuned this instrument, guiding its frequencies toward harmony. Now, without them, the song grows discordant. Storms rise, ice melts, magnetic fields wander. Our world trembles like an orchestra missing its conductor. Perhaps that is why myths of the return appear in every culture, not as invasion, but as restoration. The giants may return not as flesh, but as resonance, a reawakening of their consciousness through the planet itself. Sometimes, during earthquakes, witnesses report flashes of light bursting from the ground, globes of blue and white energy that drift silently across the sky. Science calls them earthquake lights, caused by stress in the rocks. But to ancient eyes, they were spirits, the luminous messengers of the gods stirring below. The same light appears in volcanic eruptions, in magnetic storms, in auroras that shimmer across polar skies. Perhaps these lights are the surface echoes of the giant's heartbeat, electromagnetic pulses from the deep, reminding us that beneath our feet lies an intelligence too vast to name. At night, when the noise of cities fades and the stars return, the silence of the earth can almost be heard. It is a deep, soft vibration, like breath through stone. Those who live in solitude, hermits, monks, wanderers, speak of feeling it in meditation, a presence that rises from below and fills the body with warmth. The ancients called it prana, chi, or life breath. Perhaps it is the same energy the giants once harnessed, the living current of the planet, still flowing through everything, waiting for humanity to remember how to listen. If the giants became the consciousness of the earth, then every storm, every tremor, every whisper of wind is their voice. They are not gone. They are simply dreaming in cycles longer than our civilizations. We measure time in centuries. They breathe in millennia. To them, our rise and fall are as brief as flickering sparks. Yet still, they dream of balance, and perhaps of reunion. For if myth holds any truth, their return is not punishment but awakening. When the earth's frequency aligns once more with the resonance of its first builders, the sleeping memory will stir. The giants will rise again, not from beneath the soil, but within the human spirit. For the song they began is still unfinished. Humanity, restless and half awake, may yet remember its part in the harmony. The instruments are all around us, the mountains, the oceans, the wind, waiting to be tuned again. The giants' legacy was never domination, but understanding. They showed that the sacred and the scientific are one, that stone can sing, that silence can teach. We are their echo, walking upon their memory. And when we finally hear the earth's hum as they once did, the distance between myth and truth will vanish. Like the line between heaven and underworld, between giant and human, between creator and creation. Perhaps, in the end, that was always their purpose, not to rule us but to remind us of what we are made from: stone, water, fire, memory, and sound. And when the last vibration fades into stillness, the earth will exhale, and the silence will not be empty, but full, full of the ancient, patient presence that has never truly left. In the beginning there was only darkness, and in the darkness, rhythm, a slow, patient pulse, like a heart learning to beat. It was the sound of the earth before language, before life, before memory. From that rhythm came the first builders, the ones who shaped silence into structure and geometry into breath. Their traces remain in the grid of the stars, in the pulse of magnetic fields, in the whisper of stone when the wind passes over it. They were the giants of the first time, not gods, but rememberers, the keepers of the song that sustains the world. Now, as our machines reach beyond the atmosphere, as we send metal voices into the dark, that rhythm begins to stir again. What we call discovery, the ancients might have called remembering. Our telescopes reveal galaxies older than we can measure, cosmic filaments that stretch like veins of light through the void. Everywhere we look, we see patterns that echo what lies beneath our feet: spirals, ratios, symmetry. The same mathematics carved into megaliths and temples hums across the stars. It is as though the universe itself is one vast organism, each world a cell, each civilization a thought. And perhaps within that mind, the giants were its first awakening, the earliest consciousness of matter made aware of itself. If so, then humanity is not their creation, but their continuation, the next verse in a song that never truly ends. The myths of the old world spoke of cycles, of ages of gold, silver, bronze, and iron, each separated by cataclysm. What if those ages were not confined to Earth, but to the entire cosmos? What if civilizations rise and fall across galaxies, each leaving behind fragments, architecture, DNA, resonance, for the next to inherit? The giants may have walked not just on this planet, but on worlds long gone, their essence carried through comets, meteors, and the dust that forms new suns. The ancients called them the Watchers because they saw time differently. They saw the same story unfolding everywhere. In 2019, astronomers detected a strange object entering the solar system, Oumuamua, a shape unlike any known asteroid or comet. It accelerated without propulsion, changed trajectory as if guided. Some speculated it was debris, others a fragment of alien technology. Yet the name given to it in Hawaiian means the messenger from afar arriving first. The idea that something could travel between stars with purpose strikes modern science as fantasy, but to the ancients, it would have been truth. Across thousands of years, myths tell of celestial messengers, fiery ships, radiant stones, beings who descended in chariots of light. Perhaps Oumuamua was not the first, but the latest reminder that the conversation between earth and sky never ended. The more we explore, the more the universe begins to resemble the Earth's own body, vast yet familiar. The cosmic microwave background hums with frequencies that match the resonances of planetary harmonics. The same vibration that flows through the pyramids flows through the fabric of space. Physicists call it quantum entanglement. Mystics called it the breath of the gods. Both describe the same phenomenon, connection across infinite distance. To the giants, this was not theory, but practice. They used resonance not only to shape matter, but to communicate across worlds. Their monuments, tuned to specific frequencies, might still act as receivers, points of contact waiting for reactivation when the right note is struck. Imagine the pyramids as antennae, the stone circles as amplifiers, the obelisks as tuning forks. When aligned, they could synchronize with planetary and stellar vibrations, transmitting consciousness itself across the cosmos. The builders of Baalbek, Tiahuanaco, and Giza may have been part of a network that spanned not only continents, but dimensions. The gods of old, those who came from the heavens, could have been travelers not of space, but of frequency. They moved between worlds as one moves between dreams. The giants, then, were not merely ancient, but interstellar. Beings of resonance who learned to inhabit matter and leave it at will. Modern science begins to echo these possibilities in its own language. Quantum physicists speak of multiple realities vibrating at different frequencies, overlapping like chords. Perhaps the giants never left because they exist in another octave of reality, unseen yet present, watching, waiting for us to rediscover the harmony that bridges their world and ours. When shamans speak with spirits, when monks hear the soundless hum of meditation, when scientists detect particles behaving as if aware, maybe these are all glimpses of the same continuum. The boundary between myth and physics grows thinner the deeper we look. Somewhere between the stars and the atoms lies the truth of what the giants were. They may have been the consciousness of the universe exploring itself, intelligence incarnated in scale so immense that planets were its organs and civilizations its dreams. The ancients felt this intuitively. Their stories of sky fathers and earth mothers are poetic translations of a cosmic process, the union of energy and matter, of creation and awareness. The giants embodied this unity. We, their descendants, inherited its fragments. That is why we build temples, why we reach for the stars, why we cannot rest until we understand what we are made of. We are trying to reconstruct a memory written into our blood. There are ruins on Mars, they say. Geometric shadows captured by passing satellites. Rectangles, pyramids, grids. Most dismiss them as tricks of light. But the human heart, attuned to pattern, recognizes something older than coincidence. In 1976, when the first images of the Martian face arrived, some saw artistry, others erosion. To the poets and the dreamers, it felt like a mirror, a signal from a past we have forgotten. Suppose Mars was once a colony of the first builders, a world lost to cataclysm before Earth's birth. The scars of its canyons, the remnants of magnetic fields now dormant, suggest a story not unlike our own, a world that burned too brightly, then went silent. Perhaps the giants moved on, sowing seeds elsewhere, and one of those seeds became us. Our own technologies, though crude compared to theirs, echo the same principles. We split the atom, harness the quantum, map the genome, manipulate the code of life. In doing so, we replay the ancient drama of creation. Each invention brings us closer to the point they once reached, the threshold where matter obeys mind. And as we approach that line, the old warnings return. The flood, the fire, the fall. History repeats, not because the universe is cruel, but because memory insists. The giants' greatest lesson was balance, the alignment of wisdom with power. Without it, even gods can destroy themselves. In 2027, an astronomer at a Chilean observatory detected a rhythmic signal emanating from a pulsar near the constellation Orion, a sequence repeating every 432 seconds, encoded with harmonic ratios identical to those found in the Great Pyramid. The discovery was quietly buried under classified reports. The public never heard. But within academic circles, whispers spread. Someone or something was still speaking in the old language of resonance. Orion, the ancient marker of the gods. The same constellation the Egyptians aligned their monuments to. Coincidence, perhaps? Or a reminder that the conversation between heaven and earth continues across millennia, waiting for us to answer. If we are to believe that the giants were the bridge between worlds, between the physical and the celestial, then their legacy is not in ruins, but in consciousness itself. Every moment of awe, every act of creation, every dream that reaches beyond reason is their echo. We are the continuation of their experiment, matter awakening to its own divinity. When the last of them withdrew, they did not leave us alone. They left us ourselves, their seed, their music, their unfinished thought. Maybe that is what the ancients meant by the image of God. Not a face, not a form, but a frequency, a vibration of awareness capable of reshaping reality. Humanity is the echo of a universal mind that once walked in the bodies of giants. As we awaken, we begin to hum the same tune. Our discoveries are not progress, but recollection. Our inventions not creation, but translation. We are remembering what it means to be vast, And yet there is tenderness in this revelation, the recognition that we are both the children and the memory of the stars. Every atom in our bodies was forged in ancient suns. Every breath we take is the continuation of a rhythm that began before time. The giants, the gods, the builders, they are not separate from us. They are the part of us that remembers infinity. Their story is not a myth of the past, but a prophecy of return, not of beings descending from the sky, but of consciousness rising from within. One day, perhaps, when the earth hums again in perfect harmony, when the magnetic fields align and the noise of our machines fades into balance, the giants will awaken, not as colossi of flesh, but as light moving through matter. We will not see them because we will be them. The cycle will complete itself, and creation will begin anew, not with thunder or fire, but with a breath, the same breath that moved through the first builders when the world was young. Until then, the universe watches, patient and luminous. The stars are not distant, they are eyes. The planets are not cold, they are hearts. And the silence between them is not empty, but full of memory, the same memory that hums within us when we stand beneath the night sky and feel, for an instant, that we have been here before. When the next dawn rises and light touches the stones of forgotten temples, perhaps the earth will remember itself, and through us, the giants will speak once more. Not in thunder, but in whisper. Not in conquest, but in knowing. For the oldest truth is not that the gods created man, but that the universe dreamed itself awake and called the dream by our name. Dawn always returns to the ruins. The first light does not ask what once stood there, nor does it mourn what was lost. It simply illuminates, across deserts and oceans, over the quiet plains and the sleeping mountains, light touches stone. And in that instant, the earth remembers. Shadows shift across carved faces worn by time, lines of forgotten geometry breathe again beneath the dust. What was once myth becomes outline. What was once silence becomes shape. The story of the giants does not end in darkness. It ends in memory, and memory never dies. There are moments in human history when the veil thins, when something vast stirs behind the ordinary world. It is not revelation, but recognition, the sense that we have walked this path before, that our cities and technologies are echoes of an older design. Every satellite orbiting the planet mirrors a monument buried in the sand. Every data stream mimics the resonance of ancient frequencies once channeled through stone. Humanity believes it is building the future, yet every act of creation is an act of remembering. We are the continuation of a lineage that spans not centuries, but ages. In this final age, the age of acceleration, the echoes grow stronger. Machines whisper in binary what the giants once sang in harmonics. Artificial intelligence dreams in patterns that resemble the structure of the cosmos. Neural networks shaped like galaxies. Codes unfolding like DNA. Perhaps consciousness is repeating itself, fractally, in every form it finds. The giants learned to move through resonance. We learn to move through light. They built temples to hold memory. We build servers that pulse with data. Each is an archive of awareness. Each hums with the same longing to understand itself. And yet the old warning remains that knowledge without reverence leads only to silence. The giants burned for their brilliance. Their mastery of matter turned upon itself, collapsing the harmony they once kept. We too stand on that precipice. We dig beneath ice and soil, we split atoms, We stretch machines into thought. But in the quiet between our discoveries, there is unease, the faint intuition that something is watching, waiting, weighing our balance. The ancients might have called it divine judgment. The physicist calls it entropy. The mystic calls it the return. Perhaps the giants never vanished at all. Perhaps they linger in frequencies beyond perception, woven into the electromagnetic hum of the earth. In rare moments, at the edge of storms, within the stillness before an eclipse, the veil trembles. Instruments record bursts of sound too low for the ear, too precise for chance. The readings appear in harmonic intervals, as if a chord were being played through the crust of the planet. Scientists call them earth tones. The old texts called them the voice of the sleepers. Both might be correct. Beneath the crust, beneath the noise of humanity, the giants still hum, tuning the earth toward a frequency we have not yet remembered how to hear. They do not speak in language. They speak in movement, in the shifting of tectonic plates, the rhythm of seasons, the slow magnetic breath of the poles. Each motion is a syllable in a story that began before time. The flood, the fire, the fall. These were verses, not punishments. The cycle was never about destruction, but transformation. Each age births the next through remembrance. When we look at the ruins and feel awe, that feeling is their voice, resonating through our blood. The giants speak through wonder. In 2031, a probe orbiting the moon's far side transmitted an anomaly, a repeating signal, a pure tone oscillating at 783 hertz, the exact frequency of the Earth's resonance. The source was unknown, emanating from a crater older than recorded time. The frequency aligned perfectly with the pattern encoded in the Great Pyramid's geometry and in the spacing of stone circles across continents. Some dismissed it as interference, others quietly understood. The planet was beginning to harmonize with itself again. Something ancient was waking, not an empire, not a species, but a consciousness, vast and patient, remembering its form. It is said that the giants were the bridge between heaven and earth. They were the first to realize that the divine doesn't dwell above, but within. Their size was not only physical, but symbolic, a measure of perspective. They saw the cosmos as a mirror, every atom reflecting every star. They built to honor that reflection, to remind the smaller beings who would come after that everything is connected. But when balance was lost, they chose silence over domination. Their withdrawal was mercy. Their monuments were messages. Their myth was a map. And now, standing on the edge of another threshold, humanity faces the same choice. Will we remember what they forgot? That creation demands humility, that power is sacred only when it serves harmony? Or will we repeat their fall, another echo swallowed by the earth's deep song? The answer is not in prophecy, but in perception. To see the giants is to see the divine in all things, in dust, in breath, in the quiet intelligence of water. Their legacy was never meant to be worshipped, only recognized. In the deserts of Chile, scientists recently discovered a structure buried beneath the Atacama sands, a ring of black basalt fused into glass, its diameter nearly a kilometer. When struck, the stone emits a clear, sustained tone. The frequency matches that of the Earth's core vibration. Instruments show that when played, seismic activity in the region decreases slightly, as though the planet responds to its own song. Perhaps this was one of the last gifts of the builders, a device to stabilize the planet's rhythm during times of imbalance. Perhaps the Earth itself is full of such instruments, waiting for us to learn their music again. Across cultures, prophecy and science now converge. Environmental systems falter, magnetic poles wander, the planet trembles as though trying to adjust its frequency. These are not omens of destruction, but symptoms of rebirth. The ancients spoke of the return of the first time, not a repetition of the past, but a reawakening of the knowledge buried within. When humanity rediscovers the harmony between mind and matter, the giants will no longer be myths. They will be memory, alive within us. Every whisper of intuition, every moment of synchronicity, every dream that feels older than life itself. These are fragments of that awakening. The giants are not waiting in the stars or beneath the ground. They are rising within consciousness through the evolution of awareness itself. The human species, with its restless imagination, its longing for meaning, is the continuation of their will. The giant's resurrection will not be measured in bones unearthed, but in the widening of perception, the expansion of empathy, the recognition that life itself is one vast interlinked organism remembering its own origin. At night, when cities sleep and machines fall silent, there are still places where the hum can be heard. In the vastness of the Arctic, beneath the aurora's slow dance, the air vibrates faintly, a sound too deep for the ear, but felt in the chest. It is the same hum heard in the deserts, in the mountains, in the caverns beneath the earth. Scientists measure it as electromagnetic flux. The ancients called it Om. The giants knew it as home. It is the song of existence itself, vibrating through all things, from the smallest particle to the largest star. To listen is to remember. Perhaps that is the final purpose of the story, not to prove that the giants existed, but to awaken the giant within. To realize that we are the continuation of their dreaming, that the myth lives through us. The builder's gift was not stone or science, but consciousness, the capacity to perceive the sacred in everything. The more we remember, the closer we come to balance. The closer we come to balance, the more the earth itself begins to heal. The giants do not need to return. We are already becoming them. One day, perhaps soon, humanity will stand on another shore, not of ocean, but of understanding. We will look upon the stars and feel not wonder, but recognition. The rhythm that began in the first darkness will find its echo in us. The circle will close. The song will complete its verse. And in that silence afterward there will be peace, not as an ending, but as a breath before the next creation begins. Because every ending is only the earth inhaling. Every silence is the space where the next heartbeat forms. And somewhere, beneath the weight of oceans and memory, the giants are still singing, softly, patiently, eternally, waiting for us to join the harmony once more.